I've talked a lot in the last few months about superheroes, male and female, how they just aren't what they used to be, how Endgame signaled a change that a lot of us didn't like, but many didn't realize until much later. I've talked about the narcissism that has plagued female characters and the lack of femininity in movies, how that actually lessens the validity of female characters and their impact on a story. I've talked about the general rage that seems to plague every single female character and how none of them really understand concepts like beauty or compassion or even courage anymore. I've talked about how girl bosses really just need to disappear for the sake of my collective sanity, and that storytelling will not be storytelling until this happens. Last week I saw The Marvels, which seems to really be Marvel's last gasps before it falls into its death throes. That gives me no pleasure to say, because there was a time when I would have bought and watched everything that Marvel gave to me. But since they have abandoned all pretenses of storytelling in favor of embracing ideology and insulting their fan base in every single way. A few weeks ago I talked about how Brie Larson is a physical manifestation of that ideology. And if you haven't seen that video yet, the link is in the description down below. But today, I want to talk about the character of Captain Marvel specifically, and how she is a failure of what a hero should embody, and how that was a large part of how this movie was destined to flop. It's not because she's a woman, it's not because she's powerful, it's not even because of the personality of the actress, though I am certain that plays a role with other people. There are several reasons why Captain Marvel is a failure as a hero, and I'd like to discuss those reasons in depth today. The first reason why Captain Marvel is a failed hero is that she has no personality. In her first movie, the character of Captain Marvel had all the personality and charm of a jar of mayonnaise. One of the first scenes that we see of Tony Stark when he arrives on screen in Iron Man is the displaying of the new weapons and him standing there in his suit as he shows them off to the army. In that one scene, without any words, Tony Stark displayed more personality than Carol Danvers did in her entire 2 movies combined. I have always found that the times where Tony Stark doesn't speak is when he displays the fundamental aspects of his personality. There is a perpetual twinkle in his eye of the character when he delivers certain lines, and despite his narcissism and ambition, the compassion and care of Tony Stark is very easy to see. It only becomes more easy to ascertain as his time in the MCU goes on. We see his developing relationship with Pepper, and then Peter, and then eventually his daughter. We see his personality shine when he's faced with obstacles such as his impending death in his second movie, and then PTSD in the third. No matter what challenge he is faced with, Tony Stark will always be the man who laughs in the face of danger and constantly babbles, annoying the bad guys to no end. Love him or hate him, Tony Stark was memorable, and will continue to be so long after the MCU ends, which, given the recent performance of the Marvels, doesn't seem unlikely. When you compare him to Captain Marvel, well, it's night and day. The only form of personality we see from her is smug arrogance. Her eyes are constantly half-lidded, as if she is bored with everything and constantly annoyed by whoever she's speaking with at the time. We have had 2 movies with her, and she is as personable by the end of the Marvels as she is at the beginning of her first film. We never really get to see her have a personality of her own, as most heroes do. Superman is known for his kind and caring personality, Batman for his brooding and intense persona, and the Flash for his upbeat, lively, and bubbly personality. But Captain Marvel, well, she isn't really known for anything personality-wise. Maybe her smug arrogance, but that's really all, and it's not a great thing to be known for. Carol Danvers has cultivated a personality based on some caricature that I don't really understand, because it is like no superhero personality that I have seen. And as a result of this, she is quite literally forgettable. The second reason why Carol fails as a superhero comes from the concept of accountability. As a superhero, there is a great level of responsibility that comes with the job. Most of the superheroes that we have known and have grown up with are intensely aware of the responsibility that they have to their fellow superheroes and the world at large. They understand the duty that they have to the world around them and strive to uphold those values as best they can. And when they mess up, as they inevitably do, they often face accountability for their actions. As much as I am not really a fan of DC's Snyderverse, even Batman vs. Superman held a level of accountability for the latter character that had all the world questioning the responsibilities of Superman and what right he had to act in a world-saving capacity. And if the Man of Steel can be called to account for his actions, past, present, and future, then every superhero should face a similar level of responsibility check. For goodness sake, Civil War was an entire movie about facing the consequences of one's actions and how they can have devastating results. Both Tony and Steve learned sharp lessons about the actions that they took in earlier movies. But Carol's responsibilities are never really discussed, especially her responsibilities to Earth, the planet that she claims to call home. But she has spent the better part of 2 decades in space, assisting Skrulls and apparently failing to fix the mess she created in Hala. She was not present during Loki and the Chitauri invasion. She was not present when Ultron tried to wipe out humanity. She wasn't present when Thanos made his first appearance on Earth. And aside from a few shots of her in the final battle, she wasn't really a presence in Endgame either. I understand that they wanted to let the original character shine, and I am all for that. However, Carol is never really called to account for the fact that she was just never around. She never had to explain to people why she wasn't present or talk about the lives she could have saved during each of these seemingly world-ending events. Shouldn't her responsibilities also be addressed? Shouldn't she also be called to account for the things that she didn't do? Because if we're keeping track, there are a lot of things that need to be discussed. Forgetting about her responsibilities to Earth for a moment, we can also discuss her crimes against Hala, because destroying the AI that powered the planet caused the air to be poisoned, the oceans to dry up, and their sun to die out. And this was an action that was taken without any conscious thought on her part. No preparation or attempt to reason and negotiate with the powers that be, or attempts to add modifications to the AI who issued the commands. No, she went to immediate destruction as an option, and as a result, no matter how stupid and nonsensical it is, she doomed an entire civilization to slow death. And that is never really called out, which is beyond infuriating because not only is that a war crime, it is a slow genocide. Either way, Carol didn't change much from the Kree warrior who killed Skrulls because she was ordered to the free thinker who killed Kree because she wanted revenge on the Supreme Intelligence. Her crimes are never addressed with the Kree as they should have been, and she is allowed to bypass any sentencing that her act of destruction has caused. Monica never addresses her crimes with her, and the movie brushes past them in order to turn Carol into a bad, absent family figure because she should have gone to see Monica. She did not fix the problem she had created in the 20-plus years since she had been away, and didn't even make an attempt to solve the problem for those citizens that, hadn't really ever been part of the problem in the first place. I was left scratching my head at this part because it was the final nail in the coffin that was the superhero persona of Captain Marvel. She's a gray character at best, or a villain at worst, and the movies do nothing to hold her accountable for her rampage in a bewildering and frustrating way. If every other superhero is aware of the responsibilities that they have to the people who are weaker than them, and do their best to uphold those values and be better than their enemies, then why shouldn't she? And because she either doesn't notice or doesn't care, Carol Danvers is no superhero. She's becoming something much, much worse. And finally, the third reason that Captain Marvel has utterly failed as a superhero is her lack of identity. If someone were to ask who Tony Stark is, we would instantly know. He's a genius, billionaire playboy who was once a weapons exporter that earned him the title Merchant of Death from the many people whose lives he assisted in ruining. He's the creator of the Iron Man suit that brought him worldwide fame, but also a lot of pain. He is the man who created time travel so he could bring Peter Parker back from the dead, and he is the man who snapped his fingers, taking on the power of the Infinity Stones so that Thanos would be killed once and for all. If someone were to ask who Steve Rogers was, we would instantly know him as the man who carries the shield and represented America in the Second World War. He is the man out of time that leads the Avengers and gives inspiring speeches to rally his troops. He is also the person who would throw himself on top of a grenade to protect his fellow soldiers in boot camp. He is known for iconic scenes like this that we will never forget about, no matter how much garbage the MCU shovels at us now. So what's Captain Marvel's identity? Is there anything memorable that she's really known for? Or has she just shown up at random times throughout the last 20 years or so to remind people that she exists before she bails again? She doesn't have an identity of compassion or selflessness or even courage because she's so superpowered that no one can really give her any problems outside of Thanos or maybe Wanda, who could mind control her. She doesn't have any iconic scenes that she is known for or will be remembered, and as a result, no one really cares about who she is because there's nothing about her that's worth remembering or latching onto. Carol Danvers has no identity. No one really knows what she stands for because her whole persona has been in limbo for the last little while. If anything, she stands for the exact opposite of what a hero should be. Personality aside, the only reputation that she has managed to cultivate is one of abandonment and death against multiple groups of people. And that's an identity more suited to a villain than a superhero, don't you think? Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. Be sure to leave me a comment down in the comment section about your thoughts on Captain Marvel as a character, or your thoughts on the Marvel in general. Until next time, everyone.